I've been into rhythm games since as far back as I can remember. I would come home from school every day and play them until I went to sleep, to get up the next day and repeat the cycle. So it made me pretty stoked whenever I saw a trailer for a new rhythm game in my recommendations on YouTube. It was called Friday Night Funkin', and to be honest, it looked really cool. I downloaded it immediately and booted it up. I was greeted to the title screen and proceeded to start playing. I picked up quickly on the controls and timing, so before I knew it, I was acing songs on hard mode consistently. I didn't really find that to be a good thing, however. There were only 2 weeks, which are this game's version of levels, and the overall playtime was too short. Maybe I was just too greedy or impatient, but I wanted more. Week 3 was apparently supposed to come out really soon. I couldn't wait for that to happen though. I started to search for whatever I could find about an early release. I just needed something. And then I found it. Week 3, Pico, beta download. I was just so excited that I didn't even give it a second thought and download the update just in case it got taken down or something. I extracted the zip and dropped the files into the games folder. I started up Friday Night Funkin' like usual, and there it was, Week 3 with Pico. I jumped right into playing Week 3 on hard mode without a second thought. I played the first song, Pico, just fine. I aced it and it was a pretty good song. Next up was the song Philly Nice. As the song started, I realized that there was no music. Pico was crying and GF was missing from the speaker, nowhere to be seen at all. I thought maybe the game had just glitched out or something. The vocals were still being sung by the characters whenever the notes came by, so the song was still fairly playable. I managed to make it through pretty easily. Now I was on the final song, Blammed. When the song came on, Pico looked like he'd just endured the mauling by something. Chunks of his hair were missing, and he had scratches all over his face. Pico's clothes had torn, and he didn't have any shoes on. There was still no music, but this time whenever the notes came by, there were no vocals either. BF, who's the character controlled by the player, looked really disappointed, and was hardly putting any effort into the notes I was playing. Whenever all the notes finished, Pico took the gun he was holding and shot himself in the head. His brains splattered all across the speaker as his lifeless body fell to the ground. BF's look of disappointment turned to a look of pleasure. BF turned to face the screen and grinned at me. A chill traveled down my spine as I looked into his soulless black eyes. I hastily turned the game off and took a deep breath. I calmed my nerves and deleted the files from the game. The whole experience had really made me tired, so I just turned my computer off and went to lay in bed. I fell asleep in almost no time at all. However, I was woken up by the sound of my doorbell shortly after. I checked my phone, and it was apparently 4:15 in the morning. I thought that maybe some kids were pulling a prank, so I just went to check it out to make sure my car was fine. I went to my front door and opened it up to see a small package down at my feet. At the time, I thought maybe a delivery was just late. I picked up the box and took it inside. I set the box down on my dining table and opened it up carefully. There was some small figurine at the bottom of the box. As I reached my hand into the box and pulled out the figurine, I noticed that it was a figurine of BF from Friday Night Funkin'. Something was wrong with him though. His skin was oily, his hair spiked with grease, and he had the most empty, dead black eyes. To top it all off, he had a small smirk on his face, almost as if he was proud of the way he looked. As I attempted to analyze the rest of the figure, I heard a quiet rustling behind me. I dropped the figure onto the floor out of surprise, and looked back to see nothing. All that greeted me was an empty room. I turned back around to pick up the BF figurine. Except that as I did, he wasn't anywhere in sight. I heard another rustling, but this time it was from just outside my peripheral view. I slowly rotated my head to the left, and what I saw will haunt me for the rest of my life. I saw the BF figurine scuttling across the floor out of the dining room and toward my bedroom. I screamed and sprinted out of my house in nothing but my boxers and hopped into my car. I attempted to call my brother, but there was no answer. I sighed, took a deep breath, and tried to relax. My attempt at relaxation halted as I noticed that my house was up in flames. I freaked out and called 911. I told them about my house and refrained from mentioning the BF figurine at all. They asked me for my address and told me the fire department would be on its way. I drove my car away from my house and parked at the end of the street. Before long, I saw a fire truck arrive. My house had turned into what more resembled ruins engulfed in the fire. Police had also arrived and had told me they would check out what happened. I was taken to the police station and sat there for several hours. I did get into contact with my brother, but I didn't try to explain the figurine. My brother offered for me to stay with him until I had my housing sorted. I would bring whatever left of my possessions that had survived the fire once the police had finished with the investigation. Before I knew it, the police had notified me about what the source of the fire was. It was an electrical fire that was started by the computer in my bedroom. Almost none of my expensive belongings had survived the fire. Just some knickknacks and miscellaneous junk. Whenever I had asked the police about any figurines, they said they hadn't found anything. What a reassuring thought that was.